Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do, but it ain't nowhere to run. When judgment comes for you, when judgment comes for you, tell me what you gonna do, when it ain't nowhere to hide. When judgment comes for you, 'cause it's gonna come for you.
Making it for water, easy, see something Charlie. Little boo guy's got him, and I'm gonna miss everybody out of row and flow like I ain't looked at a while. Like and pray for dust, and they play too deep for being sad. Little legs I got to be. Tell me your feature deceased, would it please? Marry me by my grand when you can go follow
God bless you, working on a plan to heaven.
Backbone Wrestling Network. Welcome back to the CrosUp, your weekly look back at the week that was in professional wrestling. This week I'll be running through the results and happenings from Raw on October 6th to Collision on October 11th, as well as the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, or PLE, that happened yesterday in Australia. We'll open with Raw as per usual. We open with a recap of Roman Reigns returning last week. Reigns comes out to start the show, and obviously the fans go wild. He soaks in the cheers, obviously, and he tells Dallas to acknowledge him, as he always does. Paul Heyman and Bronson Reed, of course, come out before he can really say much of anything. They kind of just stare at each other, and Reigns asks if Heyman has something to say. Heyman doesn't know who has been the wise man in Reigns' life recently, since Heyman broke his heart. Or since he broke Heyman's heart, that is, and tells the fans to acknowledge the tribal thief instead of the tribal chief, obviously being Bronson Reed. Heyman knows that Reed is the one man that Reigns fears, as Reed is the only person to ever cause Reigns to leave on a stretcher. Not in WWE, not in college football, not in the drunken Samoan barbecues where a battle royal was likely to break out almost always. Reed talks about how Afa and Sika were never stretchered out, so how would they feel to see it happen to Reigns at Bronson Reed's hands? Reigns says that Reed didn't know Afa or Sika, but Heyman did. What does Reigns think Sika would say to Heyman in this situation, or to him at the same time? That would be to fight both of them right now, which Reigns is ready to do, but Heyman tells him not so fast. Reigns knows what Heyman is saying about waiting, but the reality is Reigns is levels ahead of Bronson Reed. Just pick the time and the rules, and Roman Reigns will be there to show why he's the tribal chief. Heyman says it's going to be an Australian street fight, and they start to leave, but Reigns says they're walking out like a couple of bitches, and Reed comes to the ring for a little bit of a brawl, with Bronson quickly getting knocked over the barricade before they are separated by security and agents. We then recap the entire feud of the Kabuki Warriors and that's their team name actually, but Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. We then go to Asuka. She's not happy and demands that Anna Pierce make a match between Io Sky and Kairi Sane tonight. Pierce needs a drink, and Kairi is upset about having to do the match. Asuka, of course, yells at her and slaps her in the face, and Kairi just kind of cowers and then follows Asuka wherever she leads her. We then get Maxine Dupree actually scoring a win over Becky Lynch via countout when Becky is gloating on the outside for beating Maxine's ass for most of the match, honestly. But she's gloating while the referee's still counting. It was the quickest referee 10 count I think I've ever heard in my life. So she kind of got screwed there. But she gloats a little too much, and Maxine is able to sneak back in despite having her ass kicked for most of the match and wins via countout. We then get Roman. He runs into the Usos, who says they both say they'll have his back at Crown Jewel, though they both say it individually rather than together. Roman says that Jay should be focused on the opportunities that are available. Jay says CM Punk is talking at the top of the hour, so he's going to go see what that's all about. Reigns says he's not talking about you. Jay leaves, and then Reigns asks Jimmy why Jimmy doesn't like Jay taking Roman's advice. Jay doesn't really say anything as Roman kind of walks away. So continuing to put the kind of the wedge between the Usos and Roman, as we'll continue at Crown Jewel that we'll talk about later. We then get Bayley. She comes up to Lyra, kind of scares her a little bit, and asks to be in her corner tonight. Valkyria seems kind of skittish about it, but she eventually agrees and says that's fine because it's really kind of 2-on-1 in the match she's headed into. But it doesn't really work out for her as Roxanne Perez still defeats Lyra Valkyria via pinfall, falling pop rocks. After the match, Bayley grabs Valkyria by the hair and takes her to the back, saying that they need to get the two Judgment Day ladies. There wasn't really Raquel or Bayley didn't technically really interfere in the match, but they got into a scuffle on the outside, and that provided the distraction long enough for Roxanne to win. So no real interference per se, but just kind of distraction happening on the outside kind of led to the finish. We then get video of AJ Styles versus John Cena. They have quite a bit of history from the past, their past rivalries and such. We then get Styles. He's asked about the match with Cena, but Judgment Day interrupts, of course. Dom mocks the idea of Styles beating Cena, and Finn Balor says he's heard rumors of AJ Styles and Dragon Lee wanting to team up to challenge for the tag team titles. Styles says he'll find a third guy, and they will have a 6-man tonight against the Judgment Day. We then have AJ Styles and Dragon Lee recruiting Penta when we come back from commercial, who happens to be ready to go in his full gear. So he's ready to have the match tonight. But before you can answer, we cut to a fight between Bayley and Lyra Valkyria and the women of the Judgment Day. So Bayley and Lyra are fighting Roxanne and Raquel. And then Adam Pearce comes in and blows a gasket once again. So Adam Pearce having a tough night. CM Punk then comes out to cut a promo. He thanks the fans for giving AJ Lee a welcome return to WWE. We're coming up on Crown Jewel, and while he has a lot of things to deal with involving Seth Rollins, he is going to let Cody Rhodes finish up with him first. Punk has beaten Rollins this year, and he's going to get his title back, just like a sign in the crowd says he should. LA Knight comes out to interrupt, says he hasn't gotten the world title shot that he deserves. Knight agreed with some of what Punk said, but there were some omissions. Punk is the creator of the pipe bomb, but lately he's been known as a husband, and not as AJ Lee's husband, and not just CM Punk. That's not an insult, and everyone needs love. While Punk is a great husband, he's a pretty bad champion. Punk was champion for about 5 minutes, and then Rollins pinned him at SummerSlam. Then he did it again at Clash in Paris, which has never happened to LA Knight. Punk then says that's the same guy who's never been the world champion, talking about Knight, of course. Knight admits that's true and says he'll be the next man to pin Rollins, but obviously Jey Uso comes out to interrupt. Uso gets to the point by saying he's the next challenger for the world title. LA Knight is not impressed and mocks Jay's loss last week, which brings out Jimmy, of course. LA says that's not what he was trying to say, and Knight turns to look at Punk, only to get super kicked by Jay. Punk assumes that he's cool with Jay, and he's cool with Jay wanting the title. Punk wants Jay to stick with the tag stuff because he likes Jay, but doesn't like little Roman. Jay then tries to super kick, but Jimmy cuts him off, and then Punk drops Jay, but walks into a super kick from Jimmy. So kind of pseudo sets up a tag team match for later on in the night, but kind of establishing that these are 3, if not 4, of the guys that might be going for the world title next after the Crown Jewel pay-per-view happens. We then get Io Sky. She talks about her history with the Kabuki Warriors and how she and Kairi looked up to Asuka and how Asuka kind of brought her in. Asuka changed and everything went bad from there. Asuka has helped her, but she isn't the only reason Io Sky became champion. They are not family anymore, and she is ready to fight at Crown Jewel. We then get the match between Kairi and Io, and Kairi actually wins via pinfall with kind of a leverage-assisted roll-up from Asuka, so she kind of has her rolled up, and then Asuka uses some leverage to kind of help Kairi get the win. After the match, they beat her down, including an insane elbow. The fans chant for Rhea, but the commentary had kind of talked about it through the match. She's already in Australia doing media, therefore she cannot help her partner that she will have on Saturday at Crown Jewel. So poor Io all alone to get beat down by the Kabuki Warriors. We then get a video on Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, focusing on kind of how they came together to take out Roman Reigns. But obviously they have gone separate ways from there and have had some, dust up since then. And now Rollins doesn't think Rhodes will be able to lead the company and thinks he is the only person that will be able to do so. We then cut to Seth Rollins. He is focused. And of course, Becky Lynch rants about her loss earlier in the night. Adam Pearce and the referees for the match earlier. So she's complaining about everybody, pretty much complaining about anything and everything you can think of. So she's complaining about Maxine, Adam, referees, everything like that. Becky leaves and Rollins says he and Paul Heyman should talk. Rollins says he has to win on Saturday, which Heyman says will happen. Rollins asks what happens if he doesn't win. Heyman kind of rebuttals back and says, but you will beat Cody Rhodes. Heyman finally gets to the point and explains what happens. Rollins loses the locker room. Everything he has built with the vision and shows that the Netflix era has been built around a fraud while only being a secondary champion to Cody. So don't lose. Rollins pulls him back and asks what it means for Heyman if Rollins loses. Heyman says if Rollins loses, he has to ask why he picked Rollins in the first place. And that gives Rollins something to think about as Heyman walks away. We then get Jey Uso. He's ranting to Roman Reigns when Jimmy comes in. Jey wants to know why Jimmy was out there because now they have to face CM Punk and LA Knight tonight in a tag team match. Was Jimmy protecting CM Punk? Jimmy needs to decide whose side he's on. Jey is gone. And Jimmy tells Reigns that he sees everything that is going on. Reigns has Jey thinking a certain way and needs to accept that the Usos are nothing like him. Reigns says Jimmy should listen to this. When Jey won the world title, he became more like Reigns and less like Jimmy. If Jimmy wants to help Jey, sometimes he should just get out of Jey's way. We then get the six-man tag that was set up earlier. Penta, AJ Styles, and Dragon Lee defeat the Judgment Day when Styles hits the Styles Clash on JD McDonough. After the match, Styles says his match with John Cena doesn't need a story because it writes itself, and they will leave it all in the ring, and it will kick ass. We then get CM Punk and LA Knight kind of having a pre-match meeting before the main event and agree that they don't want the match, but they'll do it anyways. And LA Knight basically tells Punk to not get pinned. So basically, we'll be partners tonight, but we don't like each other and don't lose. And they don't lose as LA Knight and CM Punk defeat the Usos when Punk hits the GTS on Jey before LA tags himself in and gets the pinfall. And Punk is not pleased with the fact that his partner stole the pinfall from him the way that he did. So kind of some miscommunication with the Usos, obviously, to kind of end the match, and Punk ends up with the GTS, and LA steals the pin. So I don't know if we're good doing two heel turns right now, if Jay's kind of going heel and LA's going heel. So we'll see where it kind of goes continuing forward. But kind of interesting to see what they do with both of those guys, because LA seems to keep kind of doing some heelish stuff. But I'd say Jay's seemingly going more heel than anybody. But as far as best match, I would go with that 6-man with the Judgment Day and Penta, Dragon Lee, and AJ Styles. I just thought it was really well done. A lot of action. Some really good guys in that match. So I would go with that. We will go from there to NXT Showdown, which is it was called NXT Invasion, but they changed it last week for some reason. So it is the big TNA versus NXT face-off. So we open with a video of the origins of both NXT and TNA while talking about how this was impossible for years, and even like less than a year ago, this seemed like super unbelievable that would ever happen. But here it is. And then they showed that TNA had showed up here and is ready to fight. And then we open with our first TNA versus NXT match, and TNA comes out on top as the Hardy Boys defeat Dark State, represented by Dion Lennox and Osiris Griffin, when Matt hits the Twist of Fate on Lennox before Jeff hits the Swanton, and the Hardy Boys are your new NXT Tag Team Champions, as well as retaining their TNA Tag Team titles. So Kind of the last box that the Hardy Boys had to check off the list. They are now the NXT Tag Team Champions. Probably something nobody ever thought was a realistic idea before maybe the last few months. We then have our women's showdown match or survivor match, whatever you want to call it. JC Jane and Sol Ruka were the survivors, last eliminating Kalani Jordan. The TNA team, of course, was the inspiration of Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay, as well as Mara Sade and Kalani Jordan. The NXT team was the two survivors, JC Jane and Sol Ruka, as well as Jada Parker and Lola Vice. So I didn't go through all the eliminations. I figured that might get a little boring, but JC and Sol survived, and they last eliminated Kalani. So it's 1-1, TNA 1, NXT 1. So then we get Matt Cardona. He comes in to see Ava and doesn't mind that he made Josh Briggs mad. Briggs comes in, doesn't see Cardona, and gets a match with him next week. Briggs leaves, and Cardona says he loves this place. We then get Ethan Page. He retains his North American Championship over Mustafa Ali via pinfall following the Twisted Grin. There was this point in the match where like Mustafa Ali's boot gets tied up in like a cable, like a wire, like a microphone wire or some kind of cable that was connected to like a camera. And he's on the top rope and he can't quite get it off of his boot. So Ethan just comes and shoves him off the top rope, and he goes flying into the barricade outside the ring. It was an insane bump, and that's basically the end of the match. He does that shove and then brings it back in, hits the Twisted Grin, and retains. It was a very good match. Ends up being match of the night. I'll go ahead and say. We then go to El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. He wants Ethan Page, but Lexus King interrupts and says there is no doctor named Wagner anywhere in Mexico. King thinks it's Tavion Heights under the mask, and Heights pops up behind him and kind of scares him away. The NXT women's team is happy with their win, but Zarya comes in and is still not happy with not being included. Ruka apologizes for Zarya not being on the team and says that they'll be the women's tag team champions soon. Blake Monroe comes in and says Zarya will never be champion if Ruka holds her back. Monroe suggests that she might be coming for Ruka's women's North American title very soon. We then get our men's showdown match where Moose and Mike Santana of TNA are the sole survivor, or the survivors. I hate when they say sole survivors. They are the survivors of the match, last eliminating Ricky Saints. The TNA team also had Frankie Kazarian and Leon Slater on it. And the NXT team was Miles Bourne, Javon Evans, and Trick Williams, obviously, and Ricky Saints, who got eliminated last. So Moose and Mike Santana end up on top. Santana has the big TNA World title shot coming up tonight as of recording at Bound for Glory against Trick Williams. So hopefully that goes well for him. But it ends up 2-2. Page beat Ali, and the women won the Survivor match. And then obviously the Hardys and Moose and Mike Santana won the other two matches. So it ended up 2-2. We go back to Ava and Santino Marella, and Ava invites some knockouts to be in next week's Battle Royal to name the number one contender for the NXT Women's title, and Santino accepts as we fade to black. Like I said, Ethan Page and Ali was the best match. Really good stuff. Definitely check it out if you have some free time to check a match out from the show. Check out the whole show, obviously, but if you want to watch one match, that's the one I would suggest. We'll then go from there to Dynamite. It was called Title Tuesday. It was the same night as the NXT show. So our good pal Louis Maynard was in the was in attendance for this show. He lives in Jacksonville now, so he was at Daly's place that night. But we open with Tony Schiavone. He brings Hangman Page and Samoa Joe out for a face-to-face. Hangman talks about the various things he has done on the show over the years, from arson to dressing up as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but he has never been as confused as he was last week when Samoa Joe lost his mind. That makes him think Joe is angry, and that he has been for a long time. Now Joe is going to get the world title shot, and Page is making sure he gets it because he owes Joe. That ends at Wrestle Dream. Joe says everything Page has said is true, and now it's time for him to say some uncomfortable truths. The reality is that Page isn't a real champion because he'll give someone an opportunity of a lifetime and then face them in 10 minutes to pad his stats. That's not going to work with Joe at Wrestle Dream, where he's going to choke Page out and take his title. Page knows he's going to take a beating at Wrestle Dream, but he'll hit Joe twice as much and twice as hard. Then Page is going to beat him once and for all, and after, he hopes Joe can shake his hand and admit that Hangman is the true world champion. We then go back to the conglomeration. They're ready to win tonight on Collision. Kyle O'Reilly better not hear one more "Let's go Kyle" chant when he faces Kyle Fletcher, because he can't stand anyone else with his name. We then get Jon Moxley defeating Tomohiro Ishii via pinfall with the rear naked choke. The Young Bucks are trying to talk to Tony Khan. They need money again. Obviously, they lost it all at the casino last week, but will be there to watch the Jurassic Express match later. We then get video of Chris Statlander versus Tony Storm, and then we look at the Triangle of Madness laying them out on Collision this past weekend. We then get the Hurt Syndicate defeating the Demand, and I don't know if they named the street fight or if it was just regular street fight, but Shelton Benjamin hits a released German suplex on Ricochet through a table and then gets the pin. So they're kind of tied 1-1. So I believe they will have a match at Wrestle Dream to kind of break up the tie. We then get the Don Callis family. They have some matches coming up with Don Callis accusing Kyle O'Reilly, naming himself after Kyle Fletcher despite being older. They are ready to beat everyone they're facing going forward, and they will make a statement over the next couple of shows. We then get the Jurassic Express. They defeat KM and Orion when Luchasaurus hits the Extinction on Orion. After the match, the Bucks run in and beat the Express down. The Bucks then challenge Jurassic Express at Wrestle Dream and then lay Jack Perry out with a TK driver. The Death Riders are then shown outside, where they promise to take Orange Cassidy out tonight. We then get the Battle of the Kyles, where Kyle Fletcher defeats Kyle O'Reilly via pinfall following 2 brainbusters back to back. After the match, Lance Archer goes after Kyle O'Reilly, but the conglomeration comes in for the save. More of the Don Callis family come out, so Mark Briscoe is out there as well, and they kind of just have a big stare down between the two groups. After a commercial, Fletcher is not pleased with Briscoe coming out there after a big title match. To make it worse, he has to defend his title against Mark Briscoe at Wrestle Dream. And Renee kind of told him that, and he seems pretty pissed and kind of shocked by it. We then get Mercedes Moné defeating Lacey Lane, the former Caden Carter from NXT. This was kind of an open challenge, and I believe this is Lacey's first match in AEW. I may be off on that, but it's one of her first ones for sure. But Lacey answers the open challenge. Mercedes, of course, retains and wins via pinfall following the Moneymaker. We then get Sammy Guevara. He promises that not him, but the Beast Mortos will beat Eddie Kingston on Collision. And then Kingston, of course, has a rebuttal. He's with Hook and says he will see them at Collision, and that Beast Mortos doesn't need Sammy Guevara talking for him. We then get a double Jeopardy match, I believe is what they called it, where Takeshita and Okada defeat Rodito to get themselves a tag team title shot at Wrestle Dream. And Okada wins this, hitting the Rainmaker on Bandito. I believe Bandito's wrestling on a bum shoulder. I don't know if it's like a really bad injury or just like a severe sprain or something like that. So we might honestly see Takeshita and Okada take the tag titles next weekend at Wrestle Dream. But Bandito does take the pinfall here as Takeshi and Okada win to get their tag title shot. Jet Speed and Willow Nightingale are not worried about FTR and Penelope Ford and Megan Bayne. Stokely Hathaway and FTR can respect Jet Speed just a bit, but they don't think much of Willow Nightingale. Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford don't think much of her either. So that's a big match. Ends up being the main event on Collision. So that's kind of what that hype was for. Bandito and Brody King are ready to defend their tag titles against Takeshita and Okada at Wrestle Dream. And Bandito's kind of beating himself up for letting Brody down. But Brody tells him he's a great champion and will continue to be together with them as a tag team. So we'll see how that goes for them. We then get our main event where Orange Cassidy defeats Pac via pinfall with a roll-up after a series of reversals. Post-match, Darby Allin yells at Pac, who gives chase, but gets cut off by a taser. Darby Allin has gone full insane man lately. Not that he hasn't always been insane, but he seems to have crazy weapons and stuff every week. Flamethrowers, tasers, all that kind of stuff. The rest of the Death Riders chase Darby as well, but security cuts Darby off before he can light a Molotov cocktail. So he was about to light that and throw it at the Death Riders. And then security holds Allin down to end the show so he doesn't hurt anyone or himself. So absolutely insane. Like I said, Darby seems to have weapons and just explosive things every time he comes out lately. So I'm interested to see how this I Quit match is going to go between him and Moxley. So I'm sure Darby will somehow lose despite being a crazy man, but we'll see how it goes. But Brodito and Takeshita and Okada would be the best match for me on the show. A really good tag match. Fletcher and O'Reilly was very good as well, so definitely check those two out. It was a really good show overall, honestly, really good in-ring show. Without a doubt. So we will go to a not so good in-ring show. We will go to Impact now. And it's not really that it was bad per se, but they only had 3 matches in a 2-hour show. So there's that. But they're kind of trying to build towards the final little, final gap till Bound for Glory that happens on Sunday. So Trick Williams starts the show. Trick brags about his greatness before saying that Mike Santana is a fighter, which Trick can respect. Santana has a story, but you also have to be the best for business, which Trick is. Santana comes out, who tells Trick to shut up in Spanish. Santana talks about the issues he had before, including telling his daughter that her dad was an addict. He has everything to gain, but Trick says after Sunday, Santana will be bound for rehab. Santana isn't fazed by the words that Trick said because he sees the fear in Trick's eyes. Trick is only a one-trick pony, and after Bound for Glory, he'll be bound for developmental, while Santana will be world champion. We then get Tessa Blanchard. She talks about Gia Miller being a big fan who tried to do everything Blanchard has done. Gia went off to train with Mike Jackson, of all people, and look where she is now. Gia is happy with what she did and is ready to beat Tessa up at Bound for Glory. We then get Matt Cardona defeating Ryan Nemeth via pinfall, following Nick getting ejected from ringside, allowing Cardona to surprise him with radio silence to get the victory. We then get the Rascals. They talk about Trey Miguel super kicking Zachary Wentz in a match last week accidentally. Wentz then eventually forgives him, and then they obviously smoke, which makes them reveal that their contracts are actually close to coming up at the end of the year with TNA. So we'll see if they can re-sign the Rascals and get them back under contract, or if they decide to figure out what there is for them elsewhere. We then get Mara Sade. They get another kind of piece on her to kind of talk about who she is and who she's inspired by. This week she talks about being inspired by Jazz, former WWE diva back in the early 2000s. And now she wants to be an inspiration to young girls herself. We then get another match where Mustafa Ali defeats JDC via pinfall, following a 450 splash after a little help from Agent Zero. After the match, the system is able to chase away Order 4 to the back. We then get a really long NXT Showdown recap with TNA obviously tying things 2-2. So we didn't really get a conclusion to all that, but I kind of feel like the world title match or the 2 world title matches, honestly, because one of the NXT woman holds the Knockouts Championship, and obviously an NXT man holds the men's world title. So we'll see how TNA kind of see how TNA fares in that situation. Speaking of the NXT the TNA Knockouts champion, Santino Marella brings out Kalani Jordan and her challenger Indy Hartwell for a contract signing for Bound for Glory. Before that can go anywhere, though, here is the personal concierge to say that none of this matters because it isn't about the Elegance brand. Marella signs something about a rematch clause before Hartwell goes off about everything she has given up to be here. Kalani talks about how she had a chance to win a title and took the shot. Hartwell says her family is flying in from Australia to see her win, and then they both sign the contract. We then get video of the Hardy Boys match versus Team 3D, looking at their history, similar career paths to get them to where they are now. They talk about their kids wanting to see them, with Jeff Hardy's daughter talking about how much she loves watching her dad wrestle. And they've done this for a long time, and it ends at Bound for Glory. And it's a tables match. Obviously, I talked about that last week, but it's going to be a tables match. And I don't think any of the belts are on the line. I could be wrong, but I think they basically, Team 3D basically poo-pooed the idea of having a tag title match. So, but they may have changed that since that date, but we'll see at Bound for Glory. We get Leon Slater. He comes out to cut a promo. He says this has been the best year of his life, and he can't believe the things that have happened to him. He grew up without a father figure, never thought he was good enough. Now he's a champion, and he's following the legacy of people who paved their way for him to get here, like Chris Sabin and AJ Styles. Javon Evans isn't coming to take this from him, the X Division title, of course, because this is for all the days that he stayed up crying to his mom, wondering if anyone was coming home. If you think you're taking this from him, then you are crazy. A match that's probably going to be match of the night, and one I'm looking forward to at Bound for Glory, between Evans and Slater. We then get Eric Young defeating Joe Hendry, and I don't know if they call it a street fight or just a no DQ match, but he ends it with a low blow, and then he pile drives him on a chair to get the win. We then get a very long video at the end of the show on Mike Santana. It's narrated by Conan. He says that he has worked very hard to get here, gambled on himself to get here, and he is here for the right reasons, while Trick Williams is only here for the money. Conan talks about how Santana is representing the Latinos, and then talks glowingly about him in Spanish to end the show. So really, like I said, kind of a preview episode for, they kind of blew off the Eric Young, Joe Hendry thing. So they blew that off at least, but not a ton of matches. Eric Young and Joe Hendry would be my match of the night, just because I think it's the only one that got a good bit of time and really got to tell the story of what they were going for. So, but a real last push towards Bound for Glory, and kind of more of a preview to that than it was much of an episode of Impact, honestly, with just a few matches sprinkled in there. We'll then go to SmackDown, or go home to Crown Jewel. We open with looks at the Crown Jewel titles being flown from Saudi Arabia, of course, to Australia for the show. They have to be in special cases and kind of carried around because of the expensiveness of them all. The men's Crown Jewel title is then in the ring, where Cody Rhodes is coming out to cut a promo. He says we can talk about Seth Rollins, who has a doom and gloom thought about their Crown Jewel match. Then Rhodes heard that Paul Heyman talking about the match, and maybe Rollins is right. Maybe Cody is Rollins' Achilles heel, and maybe getting rid of the Vision is going to be his responsibility. He thinks that the people here love WWE, and knows that there are people here who are ready to take this title from him and become the new star of the company. He's talking about people like Randy Orton, Rhea Ripley, Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, or CM Punk, but he could be talking about Rollins himself. The fans boo that and chant something. I think they call him I think they call Seth a wanker, because they eventually chant that again. Cody says he's going to need Michael Cole to translate that one. Cole says he has no clue and hands the microphone to Wade Barrett. And Wade does confirm that they are chanting Seth is a wanker. Rhodes says that if the world revolves around Rollins, who is Cody in that world? He's the one wrestler that Rollins cannot beat. So we'll see if that continues to be the case after Crown Jewel. Chelsea Green then comes up to Stephanie Vaquer in the back and offers her a spot in the Secret Service. Tiffany Stratton would never get such an offer, and obviously Tiffany pops up behind them and scares them off. Vaquer and Stratton still seem like they have respect for each other going into their match at Crown Jewel, obviously. So they don't talk shit to each other, and kind of seem like they're cool, as they will be teaming up later on in the show. Cody Rhodes then runs into Jacob Fatu, says they're cool with each other, but Jacob says he's coming for the title after Crown Jewel. Cody just simply says good. He goes to leave, and then Nick Aldis comes in, says he needs to talk to Fatu tonight. That's fine with Jacob. And Aldis kind of starts to leave, and Drew McIntyre comes in and jumps Jacob. Aldis cuts McIntyre off from crushing Fatu with one of those carts that has like pieces of the set and stuff like that in them. And McIntyre says he needs to talk to Nick Aldis tonight. We then get Sami Zayn doing his U.S. Open challenge. It's answered by Shinsuke Nakamura, but it ends in a no contest when someone in a hoodie attacks them both. It ends up being the returning Tama Tonga, which was the missing piece of the MFTs I'm guessing Solo was talking about. The other three MFTs come out. They all have face paint on, so kind of really going back to their Gorillas of Destiny. Obviously, Tama and Tongaloa's previous gimmick in Japan, and they all lay Zayn out. Nakamura tries to save, but they kind of cut him off and take him out as well. And Solo kind of strolls around ringside as the beatdown goes on, kind of being the leader, sicking the dogs on these two guys that were having a match. They had a pretty solid match up until that point, but obviously it got cut off from what it could have been. We then get Drew McIntyre. He comes up to Nick Aldis, and Nick makes McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu for next week on SmackDown, and then Fatu gets some revenge, and they brawl until they are broken up by security and obviously the road agent guys that are backstage usually. We then get Tiffany Stratton and Stephanie Vaquer defeating Kiana James and Julia when Stratton hits the PME on Kiana James, and then after the match, Vaquer and Stratton have another stare down ahead of their big match at Crown Jewel. We then get Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. They come up to Zarya and Sol Ruka, and they grant them a women's tag team title shot. Ruka and Zarya bump into each other, with the champs saying that they have no communication, and that's why something like that happens. Charlotte and Alexa then turn to leave, but actually end up going different directions themselves. And Alexa says, "Charlotte, this way." And Charlotte says, "Oh, I knew that." So obviously playing on the fact that both of them are kind of mishmash teams that don't make a ton of sense and may not have the best communication. So pretty comical segment considering Charlotte's not one to usually be in a lot of comedy segments. So I thought it was pretty well done. We then get to Wyatt 6. They defeat the Street Profits after Montez Ford missed a frog splash after when Loomis pulled Gacy out of the way, and then Gacy and Loomis hit the Plague to get the win and retain the championships. After the match, the MFTs come out for a stare down with the Wyatts, which actually got a pretty good pop from the crowd. Nikki Cross is actually the one that gets up in Solo Sikoa's face, and the MFTs just kind of leave. So obviously a group kind of match that we might have going forward, and matches for tag titles that we might see in the future. We then look at Carmelo Hayes and The Miz splitting up last week. Miz blames the split on Hayes, who didn't want Miz to be the kind of mentor Miz never had. Melo missed in this situation. We then get video kind of hyping us for the main event between Damian Priest and Aleister Black, kind of hyping up that for later on. We go to earlier today on the kickoff event where Seth Rollins walked off the stage without saying anything, and even Paul Heyman was kind of stunned when that happened. So obviously they have the big kickoff events when they do these foreign pay-per-views. I think they have it for all of them, honestly, but they kind of really talk about them a lot for these foreign pay-per-views because they have to happen a day earlier, obviously. But Rollins is on head, and we'll see how it kind of works out for him at Crown Jewel for the big match. But our main event, Aleister Black defeats Damian Priest in a last man standing match after throwing a fireball in Priest's face and then hitting Black Mass, causing him to fall from the crates that they were standing on through a pair of tables. And Zelina Vega had actually come out and stopped Damian from attacking Aleister more than he already had. I think he was about to choke slam him through said tables. So maybe they'll start to pair Aleister and Zelina on TV together. Obviously, they're a couple married in real life, so we'll see where that pairing kind of goes lately. But obviously helps set up the spot with the fireball. So But that match was really good. That was a match of SmackDown. Obviously, again, kind of a lead up and kind of more of a hype show for Crown Jewel with a few matches thrown in there, obviously. But a really good last man standing match, I thought, that kind of went all around the arena. From there, we will go to Crown Jewel. We open with a video with Rhea Ripley kind of voicing it over. It talks about the sound that the WWE Universe makes around the world, and those sounds do not need translations because it's a real feeling, a real situation. And now it is Australia's turn to live that feeling. We then open with our opener where Bronson Reed actually defeats Roman Reigns in the Australian street fight via pinfall when Jey Uso accidentally spears Reigns through a table, allowing Reed to hit the tsunami and get the pinfall. After the match, Reigns and the Usos are sitting on the mat where Reigns yells at them for saying no one thinks that he can do this on his own. It only works one way, and he doesn't want to see their faces again. The fans actually chant, "Someone's in trouble" at the Usos. Reigns is gone, and then the Usos argue with each other, with Jey saying Reigns is always going to be himself, and he leaves Jimmy alone in the ring. We then get Stephanie Vaquer. She wins the women's Crown Jewel title, defeating Tiffany Stratton via pinfall, avoiding the prettiest moonsault ever, and hitting a corkscrew moonsault of her own. After the match, Triple H, of course, comes out, presents her with the title and the ring, which it like engulfs her. The title's so big, it's almost as big as her whole body, it seemed like. She then talks about how this is for everyone that supported her along the way, and now she is not only the Women's World Champion, but the Crown Jewel Champion as well. We then cut to the back where Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker praise Bronson Reed for his win. Heyman also says no matter what, they cannot help Seth Rollins tonight because he has to win on his own. We then get John Cena defeating AJ Styles via pinfall when he hits a tombstone pile driver, and then immediately follows it with an attitude adjustment. After the match, they show respect. Obviously, they give each other a big hug, and they get a huge standing ovation from the Perth crowd. It was an absolutely fantastic match. One of the best matches of the year, honestly. It was a lot of finisher spamming, but you could tell that they were just having a blast with each other. These two have a ton of chemistry. They probably haven't had a bad match, honestly. I know their stuff earlier in their careers were also really good. So another fantastic match. And it makes you even feel more like that the heel turn was incredibly botched, of course, but it was such a bad idea. He should have been having these kind of like matches with finisher spamming and, just going out there with guys that he enjoys working with, and maybe some younger guys that he wants to put over on the way out. But this is how this should have gone. It makes the WrestleMania match just look even worse throughout the rest of the year. The SummerSlam match alone did that, but this makes the heel turn even stupider, especially since they really did nothing with it. But this match was absolutely incredible. Again, ends up being a match of the show. In a show where every match was pretty good to really good, honestly. So it really stood out that much. But the next match is Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. They defeat the Kabuki Warriors when Rhea hits Riptide on Kyrie, and Io follows it with the over the moonsault. And then we get our main event where Seth Rollins actually is able to defeat Cody Rhodes via pinfall when he uses the watch that Cody gave him and hits a loaded punch, and then he hits multiple stomps, including the second one being a super stomp, is what they call it. And he wins the men's Crown Jewel Championship. After the match, Triple H comes out, presents him with the title, presents him with the ring. Kathy Kelly comes in to talk to Seth Rollins. He takes the mic and goes on about his greatness. Hits all of his regular catchphrases, and him and Stephanie pose to end the show as they are the Crown Jewel champions and hold up their world titles at the same time. So, like I said, a really, really good show. I feel like when they do these kind of international shows, they always have a really good crowd, and then they usually bring it a little harder than maybe they do elsewhere. So really, really good stuff. But we'll finish the week with Collision. Obviously, Crown Jewel happened early in the day because it was in Australia. So it happened first. So we'll go into Collision after that. We open with the regular hype promos to kind of open the show that we always do. We hear from the Triangle of Madness. We hear from Harley Cameron, Chris Statlander, and Tony Storm, who will team up later. Brian Keith and Big Bill talk. We hear from the former Acclaimed Anthony Bowens and Max Caster. They bicker, obviously, as they're kind of talking about their match later. We hear from FTR, Penelope Ford, Jet Speed, and Willow Nightingale, and they were all ready to fight tonight. We open with a match between Kota Ibushi versus Josh Alexander, which ends when Ibushi takes a bad bump off the top rope to the outside and ends up breaking his leg, I believe is the injury that it ends up being. I think it technically ends via countout, but they basically end the match after they realize the injury has occurred. After the match, Don Callis grabs the mic and says, "This is what happens when you mess with the Don Callis family." Mark Davis returns out of nowhere to go after Ibushi, but obviously Kenny Omega cuts it off quickly to make sure that nobody messes with Ibushi, who's sitting there with a broken leg. We then cut to the back. Mark Briscoe knows Kyle Fletcher fears him, and it is time for Briscoe to finally win the TNT title. We get video of what happened with Hangman Page and Samoa Joe on Dynamite, as well as their their interactions to this point before their big match at Wrestle Dream. We then get Caster and Bowens. They defeat Brian Keith and Big Bill when Bowens hits the mollywop on Keith, despite arguing with Caster just seconds earlier. We then get the Bang Bang Gang. They're in the back cutting a promo, and then Brian Keith and Big Bill, who are frustrated with the loss, come in and argue with them. We then get Tay, obviously Tay Mello and Anna Jay defeating Dream Girl Ellie and Carolina Cruz when they hit a gory bomb into a pump up knee combo on Ellie for the win. The conglomeration is okay while Mark Briscoe is away focusing on his title match. Obviously, they don't like that other Kyle, and Willow Nightingale does a nice send off for Mark Briscoe, wishing him luck in his big match. We then get video of the Demand versus Hurt Syndicate match, and they announce that they will fight once again at Wrestle Dream in a big match. We look back at Darby Allin, almost lighting the Molotov cocktail on Dynamite. Nigel McGuinness says they have lost the plot with this match. Darby and John Moxley got into a fight at a New York City Comic-Con earlier that week or earlier that day. I can't remember exactly what they said. But the Death Riders don't think much of Darby, with Pac accusing him of using too many weapons and props and relying on them and not relying on his own toughness. We then get the Triangle of Madness. They defeat Tony Storm, Chris Statlander, and Harley Cameron when Tekla hits the spear on Harley. We then get Kenny Omega. He's in his locker room. He is sick of Don Callis and is ready to deal with him. Jack Perry comes in, and Omega is not happy that he showed up in his locker room. Jack Perry is sorry for what happened to Kota Ibushi earlier, obviously. Perry has his back and goes to leave, but Omega wants to know what is going on here. Perry says that they have the same enemies, obviously the Young Bucks and Don Callis family, obviously. Though Omega isn't convinced of Jack Perry's, kind of loyalty to him at this point, it seems. He does not have Jack Perry's back, but if Perry wants to prove something, he can do so on Dynamite this upcoming week. Chris Statlander and Harley Cameron say things are not getting tense between Statlander and Tony Storm. Cameron says she can't team with Statlander to win the women's tag titles, but Statlander gets it as she needs to defend her women's world title. Harley then thinks that means that she is a tag team orphan, but Wheeler Yuta interrupts, obviously. Tony Storm then comes in and interrupts Wheeler Yuta and yells at Statlander before pulling her shirt open. And yeah, that's how the segment kind of ends. We have another MXM TV casting call. They are ready to fight, as last week the Don Callis family failed to defeat them, apparently, even though they kicked their ass. Just like the people here failed to make their parents proud. We once again get an absolute destruction of the MXM TV as La Facción Ingobernables comes out, and they win when Roosh hits the horns, and Sammy follows it with a swanton on Mansois for the win. We then get Eddie Kingston defeating the Beast Mortos via pinfall with a spinning back fist. The Triangle of Madness are then in the back cutting a promo, and they are jumped by Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata as revenge for last week. Security eventually breaks it up. Kazuhiro Shibata is in the back and issues a challenge to La Facción and Gobernables for the trios titles in a match at Dynamite. So kind of throwing out a challenge without having his partners around to kind of agree to it. And then FTR and Megan Bayne defeat Willow Nightingale and Jet Speed when Bayne hits a powerbomb out of the corner on Willow to get the win. And then after the match, Bayne and Ford go after Nightingale, but Harley makes the save and kind of runs them off with the handle of a guitar. So solid. Obviously, I guess this means Willow and Harley might be the tag team that forms to go into the tag team title tournament whenever that starts or begins. So, but the best match was the main event there. I thought the 6 person match was a very good way to go to kind of end the show. Had some hype behind it and some, they had kind of built for a week or so beforehand. So really good stuff there. So a really solid week. Looking forward to Bound for Glory tonight. Obviously, like I said, Crown Jewel was an absolutely fantastic show. Everyone should go check it out. Definitely check out the Cena and AJ match without a doubt. But really good week of wrestling. Like I said, I'm looking forward to Bound for Glory tonight, and looking forward to Wrestle Dream next weekend, I believe it is. So definitely check out all the wrestling that you would love to see. Check out the matches that I suggested. We will see you next week.
Crowd is here, about to blow.